This is Benedict, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Charles Clinton was a contractor who worked on AtariLab, which was developed at Swarthmore College. This interview took place on August 14, 2016 at Vintage Computer Festival West. In it, we discuss Priscilla Laws, whom I previously interviewed.
I was working for a small programming shop in Swarthmore that had a contract with Swarthmore College. I wrote some Skinner box software for the college. Through that, I met Professor Klotz, who was very interested in Forth in the academic setting as a learning tool. He was a mathematician, but had an interest in programming languages. Dr. Laws visited Professor Klotz, and he put her in contact with me. And based on my work on the Atari 800s with Professor Klotz and my psych lab, she arranged consultancy for me at Dickinson, half-time at the psych department and half-time with the physics department. And
So before we get there, what had you been doing with the Atari?
Professor Klotz had been experimenting with Forth on the Atari to generate some mathematics teaching software.
Okay. Recently, a couple of years ago, found some software from Swarthmore. There's Swarthmore Forth and some other software which I could look up later that came out of that college. So I'm wondering.
I was probably peripherally involved with that. I don't remember that very well, but if there was a Swarthmore Forth, it probably post-dated me, but I was involved in some of the early bits of that. So I moved out to Dickinson College and started working with Dr. Laws.
So what did she have you do?
She wanted to do what would become the AtariLab. She wanted to be able to use the Atari 800s in physics labs to run experiments, mostly timing. You could use the computer to calculate the force of gravity by dropping a ball and measuring how long it took to fall a given distance. Temperature sensors, other things. She recruited a lot of talented young programmers to do the various bits and pieces, and I was responsible for the system support issues. Designing and deploying a common graphics format and a common sound format for all the bits and pieces. And eventually we decided to investigate doing a cartridge-based one rather than disk-based. And I wrote a targeting Forth compiler that would generate ROMable code. The user aspects of the AtariLab I was mostly not involved with, other than trying to keep all the programmers using similar UI, trying to reduce the proliferation of different solutions to the same problem.
Right. Give it unified look and feel.
Unified look, but mostly those cartridges weren't real big.
Right.
We did discover that the cartridges were 4K, as I recall.
4 or 8, depending on how much memory they threw at it.
They were 4K, but they ran 8K addressing bits to the cartridge slot.
Right.
And so we built up some 8K UV EEPROM cartridges, two 4K UV EEPROM cartridges, and made the first, or certainly an early 8K cartridge. I think technology curve there. The 4K proms became available, and you could fit two 4K proms in the space.
So the AtariLab things that were released, there was the light module, and there was
I was only involved with the first. I was only involved with the first one, which was mostly temperature.
The temperature module.
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned something that was not released, or I've never even heard about a gravity idea of measuring, speed of things falling. That's
timing. There was a high-speed timer inside, quote, for the time, a quite high-speed timer.
Right.
And you could very easily rig contact switches up. So, actually, she used a contact switch for the release, and then a photo sensor for the second data point. And I don't remember how the photo sensor worked particularly, but it plugged into the game port.
So you said you worked mostly on the temperature?
Yeah, I was involved with the temperature one, and then I moved on after that.
Yeah. All right.
The temperature one was done by a bunch of assembly language people.
Yeah.
The fourth did not survive.
So you did some fourth work, and then it got thrown away?
Well, it got embedded in the cartridge.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't believe that my targeting compiler was ever used again, which makes me a little sad.
Yeah.
I wish I had the listings for it.
I also wish you had the listings for it. And then your project was over, and you...
Yeah, my consultancy contract ran out, and I moved back to Seattle and got a regular job.
But your name is there in the manual.
My name is there in the manual, and a little bit of pride there.
Nice.
I haven't left I worked on a lot of stuff, but mostly for companies that didn't make it. And so it's one of my few legacy bits.
Yeah. All right, so I ran into you yesterday setting up your booth for VCF. Do you want to talk about what you're demoing today? You're exhibiting?
The Antic people won't be that interested, but basically, I've been working on with some other people on an emulator of the Honeywell 6180 DPS-8 mainframe, which ran the Multics operating system. And we have to the point where we can boot and run Multics. And we actually generated a 12.6 release of Multics, which is Y2K compliant.
Wow. Well done.
So I'm mostly on the emulator side. I had actually only had a couple minutes experience with Multics before this. So I have this very odd view of Multics because I came up from the hardware, right? As we got more and more pieces running, I really understand how Multics interacts with the hardware. I'm not really good at writing software in Multics yet. PL1's not my native language, but I do have a deep understanding of how Multics thinks memory should work.
What do you do in real life today?
I'm unemployed, disabled. Been a senior software engineer for quite a while. I've always been a software guy.
Is there anything about the AtariLab project that I haven't asked you that I should have?
There was some really amazingly well done software on that. She was hiring high school students to do a lot of that UI stuff, and there's this wonderful sequence in there, I remember, where thermometer image is moving across the screen, leaving a trail behind, and then it fades the thermometer out and then draws the line. And it's like, oh, this is what a graph is. And it just was, to me, an awesome way to explain what a graph is, or what, how do you make a graph. And that was all as a high school student.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by some of the stuff that went into that. The voice stuff was a lot of fun, a lot of interest. I still to this day do a little bit of Forth now and then. I got to know the inside of the Atari really well to do some of those graphics.
You still have an Atari?
Not currently.
You can get one over there in the consignment.
I managed to get the Tempest arcade game that somebody had not working out there and actually get it up and working. I can play Tempest on my laptop.
Cool.
So to get that working, I had to pull up some of my 6502 memories. Tried to reverse engineer the proms for Tempest. That was a
challenge.
A challenge. There's Tempest proms run a bunch of P-code machines. There's a little P-code machine written in 6502 assembly to run the behavior of all the monsters on the Tempest screen. So, I'm trying to reverse engineer, the 6501 P-code interpreter so I can understand the P-code that runs the. That was quite a project.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.